Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we gotta revisit the Daniel Penny case because currently the trial is going on, and a recent development has made clear something that we all suspected, which is the fact that Daniel Penny is only being charged in connection with the death of Jordan Neely because he's white. Because as we've discussed before, there is another individual who is on the video, despite the punch-in shot that just shows Penny and Neely in frame together, that assisted in the restraint of Neely, and we have discovered through a recent development that District Attorney Alvin Bragg has given that person immunity. Somebody who assisted in supposedly the manslaughter and the criminally negligent homicide that Daniel Penny is being charged with has gotten an immunity deal because he's non-white. Why wouldn't you just prosecute both of them if you believe this is a horrific crime? Now, we're going to get into this. We're going to break this down. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
So like I said, the trial is underway for the death of Jordan Neely. Daniel Penny, who was arrested immediately, turned himself in at the time that the warrant was issued against him, is the person who is being portrayed by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which is run by Alvin Bragg, as a villain, as a potential evil white racist. And this is due in large part to the fact that we had a viral image that was a portion of a viral video that people thought was very bad. However, what we heard at the time from the other passengers on the train and multiple times throughout the whole course of the lead up to this trial was the fact that Neely was going crazy. He was very threatening. Everybody was concerned, and it appeared that Daniel Penny restrained him on behalf of the other passengers. And as a consequence of that restraint, Jordan Neely unfortunately passed away. There was no intention for murder or anything of the sort. This was a situation where somebody who was unbalanced, who by the way the city of New York knew was unbalanced, was allowed to wander the streets, ignored by his family, by the way, who suddenly came out and said, "Oh my God, our poor baby Jordan Neely," and then he ultimately ended up dying as a consequence of his actions. But Daniel Penny was castigated as a villain because he's a former Marine, he's an in-shape white man, and how dare you be a white man and actually step up in a situation that requires you to step up. In fact, the takes about this particular case were so bad that Emma Vigeland of the Majority Report says that you should just accept that from time to time you're going to get hit in the face on the New York City subway system, and you should just move away when you get hit in the face.
I was hit at one point sitting on the subway by a man who was having a mental health episode. He sat next to me and he was elbowing and kind of flailing around and hit me in the face and in my body, and it was jarring, right? The idea that I would want him to be hurt in any way, I just didn't want to be near him in that moment because I understood something was going on here. Every one of us who's taken public transit has had this kind of situation, something similar happen, seeing someone struggling. That doesn't mean that our fear in that instance, and I was a little scared because I was hit.
It's a problem. Like, it's people that need help.
But my fear is not the primary object of like what we should be focusing on right now. It's the fact that this person is in pain. And so, like, the politics of dehumanization privileges the bourgeois kind of concern of people's, like, immediate discomfort in this narrow instance, as opposed to larger humanity and life. It's really freaking twisted.
Yeah,
Now, there have been a ton of developments in this particular case, including the immunity deal that I will talk about a little bit later on. But one of the things that we discovered that was released to the public that, of course, was being withheld as a lack of transparency maneuver by District Attorney Alvin Bragg was some body cam footage of people who were on the train at the time that Neely was going crazy. And I want you guys to see what the reaction is of somebody on the spot in that moment so you can understand it.
The whole train was freaked out. He was either going to pull a gun, a knife, or said, "I'm willing to die, I'm willing to die."
On cross-examination of the prosecution's witnesses, the defense played police-sworn body camera video of their statements to responding officers about what happened when 30-year-old Jordan Neely entered an F train on May 1st, 2023.
He's scared the living daylights out there.
That witness told the jury she's been riding the subway for over 50 years and has been threatened before, but this was the first time she said she was actually scared. She described Neely as resisting when Marine veteran Daniel Penny put Neely in a chokehold to restrain him.
Not a hard chokehold, just enough to secure him and the guy floor.
She testified she left to go to the conductor and then also pressed an intercom button in the station to see when police might arrive because it had been a while. She also said she went over to thank Penny after.
So this body cam footage to me is absolutely crucial because at the time you have a woman who has been riding the New York City subway for 50 years, and she says that despite the fact that she's been threatened before, despite the fact that she's seen criminality on the subway before, Jordan Neely was the first person in that 50-year time period to actually scare her. She also points out that Daniel Penny was not putting him in a difficult restraint or anything like that, and as you can see by the end of that tale where she said she went up and thanked Daniel Penny, she was grateful for this intervention, which was on behalf of her. Now, you guys might have also seen in that particular still image that they showed us on this CBS local news affiliate that there is another man who has his face blurred for some reason who is assisting in the restraint of Jordan Neely. Now, we will talk about this man again because he recently got an immunity deal, and I'm going to explain to you in great detail how awful that is. However, I do want to jump really quickly to a New York Post article on this particular case because we have other accounts from other witnesses that I want to read to you so you can understand the situation at hand. Again, from the New York Post, since the trial of Daniel Penny kicked off, witness after witness described the abject terror they felt while riding the Uptown F train as the unhinged homeless man Jordan Neely entered their car, snarling and threatening strap hangers. One teen testified that she was so frightened she thought she would pass out. Another woman said she was scared crapless, and a 29-year-old man said that he was pretty scared. All testified that they never experienced the type of acute panic while riding the train.
Another woman on the train with her 5-year-old son told the jury, "I've taken the subway for over 30 years, and I've seen a lot of unstable people, and this felt different to me." She demonstrated for the jury how she saw Neely lunging at people. When Penny took Neely to the ground, she said, "I felt very relieved because I was scared for my son." She was shocked to read in the paper that Neely had died because it didn't seem like his breathing was under distress.
But on Tuesday, one was visibly petrified to be in that courtroom, with protesters outside and multiple Neely supporters inside, scared to be on the stand to be a party of a potential acquittal of Daniel Penny and what that would mean for the witness's personal safety. And that man, of course, is 39-year-old Eric Gonzalez, who is seen on video assisting in the restraint of Jordan Neely, and thus, in my opinion, if you're going to charge Daniel Penny with a crime, it is only logical that he should be charged with the crime. And again, this is not something that I said way later or anything like that. In my first video, I talked about the fact that Daniel Penny being the only person charged was really insane. So I do believe that this Marine was justified in the restraint. However, I think he's going to face criminal charges because Alvin Bragg is going to pursue those criminal charges. Now, it's going to be interesting because you have other people who participated in the restraint if they face criminal charges. Because if you remember, in the George Floyd case, it was not just Derek Chauvin who ended up being convicted, but the officers that assisted in the restraint and Tao, the officer who was doing crowd control, were also convicted. But I'm guessing because Alvin Bragg is much bolder and much more racist than even the district attorney in Minneapolis or Keith Ellison, who is the attorney general, that we're going to just get a one-to-one prosecution of the white former Marine, and any other people who assisted in the restraint aren't going to be presented at all whatsoever. So look, I want to be 100% clear for everybody out there in the audience. I in no way, shape, or form am condemning the actions of Eric Gonzalez, except for the fact that he initially lied to law enforcement, which you definitely shouldn't do.
The latest on the Daniel Penny trial. Today we heard from a subway rider who says he helped the Marine veteran hold down Jordan Neely as Penny kept Neely in a chokehold. The encounter would result in Neely's death in the subway. Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles live in Lower Manhattan with more on today's testimony. Darla.
Well, David, Eric Gonzalez testified he had no idea why Daniel Penny had Jordan Neely on the floor in a chokehold. He just said he saw someone restraining another person and he jumped in and tried to help. It wasn't until after the fact that he realized that Neely had died and that Penny had been indicted for involuntary manslaughter. He said he was so panicked that he took all of his vacation time, went into hiding, and when he was finally located by the Manhattan DA's office, he lied about what happened.
The person that I'm condemning is Alvin Bragg, who has made this political prosecution and has decided that Eric Gonzalez's role in this particular attack, again, according to the theory of the prosecution, is not worthy of scrutiny because Eric Gonzalez is Latino, and in my opinion, that is in fact the deciding factor. Because remember, the theory of the prosecution is that even if Jordan Neely was potentially a threat, Daniel Penny used a disproportionate amount of force, deadly force in this particular scenario, didn't care for the life of Jordan Neely, and therefore he should suffer the consequences of his death because he acted completely irrationally. But the thing is, Eric Gonzalez is on video holding down Jordan Neely's hands and arms during the course of that chokehold.
Who is the guy in the black hat? That's been one of the biggest unanswered questions in the death of Jordan Neely.
Which apparently is objectively unreasonable force, according to the Manhattan District Attorney, and he now admits that he had no idea why this guy was pinned down in the first place. He just saw Daniel Penny pinning him down and decided that he was going to assist Daniel Penny based on nothing. Now, of course, it's not based on nothing. Jordan Neely was going crazy. Obviously, he was a homeless person. He looked extra sketchy. Daniel Penny, obviously a more clean-cut dude, so you can use your intuitions in that moment to realize who's at fault, why this restraint is happening, and act in accordance with those intuitions. But the fact of the matter is, the Manhattan District Attorney is arguing that Daniel Penny witnessing the craziness of Jordan Neely that was witnessed by all the other subway passengers is not justification enough for the chokehold. So how can Eric Gonzalez not be facing charges for aiding and abetting that completely unjustified use of force? Again, not according to me, according to the Manhattan District Attorney. It makes no sense. It is not logical. It has no sound reasoning to it at all whatsoever.
Eric Gonzalez is seen in cell phone video, also trying to restrain Neely, as Daniel Penny maintains a chokehold. The 39-year-old father.
So look, due to YouTube's terms of service and the way that they restrict me from showing some forms of violence, I can't really give you the full video, but trust me, if you go to the link in the description under where it says sources, you can find this segment that shows the video of Neely fighting back against this guy while he's restraining his hands, and you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. But due to YouTube's terms of service, I can only show you the still images. But again, it is quite telling to me that District Attorney Alvin Bragg is assessing that Daniel Penny is this evil white racist monster, this absolute scumbag who attacked this innocent Bebe Angel Aladdin Michael Jackson impersonator just for trying to sing and bring pleasure to all these different various people. But this guy, Eric Gonzalez, who assisted in that without the knowledge that Daniel Penny had, who didn't turn himself in and in fact went into hiding and then lied to the police, is totally fine and totally in the clear. And in fact, he's using him to testify on behalf of the prosecution.
The first to testify Tuesday morning, telling the court that he went into hiding when he found out Neely had died and that Penny had been indicted for involuntary manslaughter. The Bronx resident explaining that he did not see what led to the commotion but jumped in and tried to help, telling Penny, at the time, "I'm going to grab his hand so you can let go. But at some point, Jordan Neely's body went limp and I let go." That's when Gonzalez said he tried to wake Neely and check for a pulse before leaving the scene to go to work. Gonzalez telling the court how Neely tried to break free from the chokehold, seen here tapping the leg of a bystander, asking him to tell Penny to let him go.
Now, originally in my other video, I talked about the two individuals that assisted in this restraint. The other person that I was referring to is that guy standing up, but it looks like he did not actually physically assist in the restraint of Jordan Neely, despite the fact that he was being tapped on the leg and he observed this situation. So there was actually two, not three people involved in this, but my point still stands about Eric Gonzalez, who again, I am not condemning in any way, shape, or form, but according to the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's theory of prosecution, should be just as culpable as Daniel Penny.
Gonzalez telling Neely they were not going to do that, after which Neely is seen here, fiercely struggling to get loose. NYPD detectives having to track him down a week later. Gonzalez in a panic he might get pinned with a murder charge, testifying, "I lied to the ADA, at first saying Neely struck him first and Penny came down and took him down, and that I also lied and said Jordan Neely was alive and breathing when I left the scene."
Yeah, that's right. So this guy, when he was eventually tracked down by the Manhattan District Attorney's office, ended up lying to them, and he admits that he lied to him throughout the course of those interviews. And by the way, I know people are going to think that's perjury, but that's when you lie to the FBI. This could be considered an obstruction of justice charge. However, that is not being charged. Instead, Eric Gonzalez got an immunity deal so that Alvin Bragg could basically crucify Daniel Penny for daring to step up and daring to act. Although I will point out, again, if the chokehold is objectively unreasonable, then this guy with no context for the situation assisting in the chokehold should also be considered objectively unreasonable. In fact, you could argue, based on everything that went down with Eric Gonzalez, him not witnessing the craziness of Jordan Neely and then just jumping in on one side based on an assumption, him also lying to the police, him fleeing the scene of the crime, him having to be tracked down rather than being churned in, that Eric Gonzalez would be more guilty, more in the wrong, had more improprieties related to this particular case than Daniel Penny. But that's not the way that Alvin Bragg sees it. He's made it absolutely clear that he is looking for racial justice, which of course is injustice. That's what he's trying to pursue. So in this particular case, you have a situation where all of the charges that are definitely applicable to Daniel Penny are somehow removed from Eric Gonzalez, despite the fact that he is just as guilty, again, under the theory of prosecution, as Daniel Penny is. But that's the thing. We all understand what this case is about. It's about getting revenge. It's about shutting down a white person who dared to step up. And that's why they've gone through all these different various steps to try to tear Daniel Penny down. And I just want to point out, for all those people who are making posts about these different various cases where somebody doesn't intervene and they ask why they didn't intervene, this is exactly why. Because apparently you can be threatening to the point where multiple people who have ridden the subway for decades have never felt that threatened. Somebody steps up, they use a reasonable amount of force, and then they get tagged with these serious charges based on the color of their skin. And everybody who assisted that person, they walk away. They get off scot-free. No big deal for them, because you know what? I mean, what are you even going to do? Because they're non-whites.
Now, Gonzalez has been proffered a deal with the Manhattan DA's office that he would not be charged for anything. He told the office about what transpired that day in exchange for his testimony, but he only got that deal 2 weeks ago, and he says he's been scared since then.
Now, to be 100% clear, I'm not advocating at all whatsoever for Eric Gonzalez to be charged with a crime. And by the way, it's a moot point right now because he has an immunity deal in relation to this matter. What I'm doing is I'm pointing out the complete and utter objective hypocrisy in this particular situation and the maliciousness behind the prosecution of Daniel Penny. Because again, you have Daniel Penny who acted in this particular case based on what he saw, what he observed, and the threat that everybody assessed that was Jordan Neely. He stayed for the police after the fact. He turned himself in when they issued a warrant. By contrast, everything that this other guy did, Eric Gonzalez, was wrong post that. He ditched the scene of the crime. He pieced out. He ended up hiding for a week. He ends up meeting with the district attorney and police. He lies to them, again, according to his own account, and he gets a free pass despite the fact that he assisted in the physical restraint, which, remember, is so bad, it's worthy of a manslaughter and a criminally negligent homicide charge. That's what we're seeing right now. It's laid bare for everybody in the world to observe, and this is who Alvin Bragg is. A race hustler scumbag who is charging people not based on objective evidence, but based on the fact that he wants revenge for some kind of cosmic crime against black people of days past. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the craziness of the Daniel Penny case. Till next time.